Unlock the past.
Shape the future.
Dive deeper.
Discover more.
Welcome to Artifact
Season 2.
on Alona FM Podcasts.
The Sound of Arabia.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us Miss Aida Murad in the studio today.
Hi.
And Aida has been shortlisted as America's next top artist by the Smithsonian Channel. And she's an a global impact artist and creative strategist. She's known for her unique technique in painting with her fingers and eyes closed, and we're going to hear about why later. And Aida collaborates with institutions like Google and MIT and the World Bank. And also she focuses on art and well-being and innovation and nature. And she's especially passionate about conservation, which is one of the reasons why I was so delighted to meet her. And her work has been globally acquired by many royal houses across Europe and the Middle East, especially from the British royal family and Jordan's Royal Hashemite Court, and also Qatar Foundation, to name just a few. Welcome to the show, Aida.
Thank you for having me. So happy to be here.
Tell me, Aida, one thing that is very notable, of course, besides all your successes, I think your challenge is so much a part of who you are today as an artist. A challenge that you had to really not only mitigate, actually you weren't able to mitigate it. You had to live with this obstacle. Tell us about that.
Being semi-paralyzed for 4.5 years.
Yes.
So yeah, that was the worst, but best thing that happened in my life. And I wish I could go to younger me and tell her that. Just tell her, be patient, and you're going to turn a chapter that's going to be magnificent. It's almost like colors you've never dreamt of before. So what happened is I was in college at George Washington University in DC. And then overnight, I just couldn't walk. Actually, within 48 hours, I couldn't walk or move anymore. And I had to drop out of college. And then I ended up graduating, but with something easier because I couldn't go to classes. And it was 4.5 years at 2 different episodes of not being able to move or walk, like simple things of going to the restroom, changing your clothes were dreams now for me because I couldn't do it alone. And I was a very proud person and independent that I didn't know how to ask for help. So the struggle was much more because I tried to do it alone, which is not a way to live, to try to get out of a hole alone.
So what was your condition called?
So it was severe arthritis,
Mm-hmm.
and I was really young. I was 20 which severe arthritis means inflammation in all your joints.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have it severely, means you can't move your joint. And for me, it was all over my body. And I say semi-paralyzed because imagine in 1 hour, I'd be able to move my upper body. And then the next second, everything freezes. And then the next second, I can move it again. And then my whole body freezes. It's happened once where I was actually in the kitchen. I'll never forget that. I was in the kitchen. I'm just making a sandwich. And then I wanted to go back to my bedroom. And then all of a sudden, my legs stopped working. So I actually had to crawl from the kitchen to my bedroom. And I was crying all the way. And then when I didn't have the strength to raise myself from the floor to the bed, so I remember just sleeping on the floor that night, and that was miserable. But
you're saying it is as a source of inspiration for you at the end.
Exactly.
And from our previous conversation, you told me to this day, there's actually still effects of this arthritis. Like you're not completely healed or cured from your...
Yeah, so let me share the beautiful bright side of all this. So when doctors told me you have 3 months, Aida, left to use your hands and your feet. And at the time I was in DC and I was applying for jobs. And I'm a very transparent person. So I will tell you what's on my mind. So they asked me, why should we hire you? And at that time, I didn't know what depression was. I was depressed, naturally, with all what was going on. And they asked me, why should we hire you? And I said, I have no idea. There's nothing special about me. I didn't get the job. That would have been really cool if they gave me the job.
I would have hired you.
thanks. You believe in me. Um, so I remember leaving that interview and with two news, like Aida doesn't have a job. Aida has 3 months left. And then I remember like God gave me a unique fingerprint. There has to be something special about me that I just don't know what it is. So I had like the idea of getting paint and starting to paint with my fingers.
But you were an artist. But you were an artist before.
I was an economist.
You were an economist before.
Yeah.
Okay, so after you had your condition, or after you felt the ailment of your condition, you started to experiment with art.
Exactly. Just to unlock the answer of why am I unique? And I was like, maybe if I keep repeating this movement, I'll unlock something in my subconscious. I don't know. And then, as cheesy as it sounds, I did find my purpose, which is to use art for impact. Like all I care about is making people feel seen, heard, and loved. Not just people, but animals and plants too.
I don't think it's cheesy at all. I think most people are actually still looking for their purpose, nobly and chivalrously looking for the purpose. Yet, I mean, I wouldn't feel cheesy at all had I found my one of my other purposes. I mean, podcasting is definitely one of my many purposes, but I would love to know if there's any more purpose for me in life. Tell me, Aida, your art often combines nature and human experience. Why? First of all, is there really a difference between the human experience and nature? I would argue that the human experience is a part of nature, and often we are very hell-bent on trying to separate human beings from nature. And I want to know your take on that, and I also want to know, why is that one of your perspectives?
So there's so many reasons, but let me start with the most profound, not profound, but strongest one for me, which is I feel like nature embodies the purest values humans can have. Meaning, I think of a flower. The flower doesn't choose like whether you're going to take it or he's going to take it. It's just open, and it consistently gives, right? And then the seasons, it reminds me that we're not meant to be on all the time. We're not meant to be pushing, like this society today is obsessed with productivity, is obsessed with even how we're killing nature is because we're just keep on producing, and we don't slow down. But nature has the wisdom that I believe we can all learn from. And I'm obsessed with one thing specifically, the mycorrhizal network, which is about how trees support each other through their roots and fungi. So for example, if we were trees and you needed nutrients, I would feel it, because we're connected. So we as a collective trees would send you nutrients so you can thrive. And then one day I'm going to need you and you're going to feel it and you're going to send to me. So I dream of a world. I'm a very sensitive person and I love love. And I dream of a world where people behave that way, that we just supported each other because we're all connected. You know?
So the interdependence in nature inspires you.
Yeah.
And using your example with the trees, in fact, they do constantly communicate with each other. And not only do they share minerals and give each other information about water resources, they're also able to inform one another of disease and they're able to inform each other of the oncoming of different types of pests, such as insects and herbivores, other herbivores besides insects. And so I really, I'm inspired by your inspiration of nature, because I do believe that nature is the ultimate inspirer. So I don't blame you at all for being inspired. But what do you think about the human experience? Is it separate from nature, at least from your artistic perspective? It doesn't have to be your philosophical perspective. From your artistic perspective, do you represent the human nature as being separate from the rest of nature?
I think there's no such thing as separation. I think separation is an illusion. You know, and I think we all live, the best metaphor I have is a spider web. You know, if we take care, for example, your happiness, I truly believe at some point is integral to my happiness. And same with taking care of this animal, of this tree, because we all live on this one container. And whether it's 0.111%, I will be impacted. And this is what I wish to communicate. One of the messages is that we are all connected. and to break this illusion of separateness.
Love it. I love it. Aida, tell me, you primarily paint with your fingers, even though you had very severe arthritis. And it's a technique that is both intimate and unconventional, because usually people are imagined with painting with tools besides their fingers. And what drew you to this method?
Well, it started out of necessity first, because I actually couldn't hold a paintbrush. So, because I couldn't close my hands. And I just realized that I'm going to make something with my life. Like this, maybe I'll never use my hands. I remember when I made peace with that. Maybe I'll never be able to close it, write again, but I can create beautiful pieces of art. And I remember just having fun with it and not thinking about the outcome. I didn't care about what the world would think of my art. I just cared about being able to use what like God blessed me with, and not seeing it as damaged, but seeing it as different.
Help us imagine, though. Is it like you literally dipping your fingers into
Yeah.
paint and then smearing it? Or is it your knuckles? Is it like smudging with your fingerprint?
Yeah,
What is
there's
it?
so many. This is so fun. There's so
Show
many
us,
techniques.
Aida.
Okay,
What
so
do you-
it started first because my hands were like this. So I had to just basically take paint and then just however the day was in terms of the amount of movement I could do. So it would start like this. But then now that I got my hands back in terms of movement, I just have fun with it. So I've done like a 12-foot long painting. I don't know, that's maybe like 4.5 meters long with just a single thumb. And I've done with only this side and mostly eyes closed. So one of my paintings is acquired by Georgetown University Cancer Center, Lombardi Cancer Center. And it's a 12-foot long painting. And I painted it all with this and with my eyes closed out of symbolism to anyone there who's going in a healing journey and doesn't know what's next, to just trust it. Like with a single interaction, single medicine, single left turn can change your life. You know, that's kind of why I love when I just paint with a single finger. And then I try not to get stuck with any technique because there's so many possibilities just with these two hands.
Amazing. So
Yeah.
essentially, the message I'm gathering, and I'm no artist like yourself, and I don't have the IQ that you have, but
Haha.
what I'm assuming is, when you're sharing your art with people who are sharing a certain health condition, like you had this health condition, and perhaps those people will never be relieved of their condition, like you were somewhat relieved at least. And those people, when they see your artwork, perhaps they are really able to connect with the message behind the art, because perhaps there's a person who will forever only have this side of his hand or her hand to paint with. And so I can only imagine, really, if you're that kind of creative person and you're bound by some sort of health condition, how you really are able to emotionally live with it, yet you're able to deliver to people, to potentially like hundreds and thousands of people, messages through art. And so was that a driver for you, or was it like I have a sense of creativeness that I have to get out of me, or it was communication really your goal?
So at first, well, yes, communication is integral to my practice. And that's why I go to the message of helping people feel seen, heard, and loved. Because I think I wished, not just from this being sick part, but in my life, like I wished people were kinder. I think even if you don't have a health condition, may God bless you all with good health, we have, heart scars, we have loneliness, we have the looking for purpose. And I think we're all struggling with something. But if we build the capacity to expand our bliss muscle, our joy muscle, our dreaming muscle, to imagine of a better life. And it doesn't, again, you don't have to have something dramatic happen to you to go here. I think I had to have something dramatic for me because I was a very different person, and we can talk about that later on. I needed something dramatic so I can come to this path of
to understand the value of your limited time.
Exactly,
in this world.
exactly.
And a lot of people, they are not they're not invigorated, or they don't feel enlightened, or they don't feel the pressure of having to deliver on the purpose of their life until they have something like this happen to them.
Exactly. And now I'm using art. Part of the communication is about happiness. That's okay
And
to have
therapy even. And
exactly.
you've worked in art therapy, Aida. So how is what therapeutic elements are there to art creation, art consumption?
So, okay, I specifically love abstract art. So most of my art is abstract with one exception of painting. Why? What is therapeutic I find in art is, as humans, especially in today's age, we need to understand everything. We need to box everything. Abstract art, you have to look at it, and based on how and you need to tune into yourself, and then based on how you're feeling, you will see something different. You get what I mean? Like, you can do the same with a portrait, but portrait is much more defined than abstract art. So just that tool.
And portraits, I feel like, is more documentation than it is.
I personally agree, but yeah. And then, so that's just in viewing, because let's break it down into two things. One is in terms of absorbing and viewing art, and then second in terms of engaging yourself as an artist. So the first one done, second one, and we can go deeper into the first one. But second one, what I do with people is, I've noticed they have a lot of control. We have a lot of control issues. Like, we want to control our life, control the outcomes. So I say, when I notice that you're starting to think with your mind too much and not think with your heart, or feel with your heart or your body, is paint with your eyes closed. And they all have to paint with their hands, never a paintbrush, because it's more you engage.
This is in the art therapy.
And the art therapy, yeah. So for just as background, I do workshops from healing to innovation. So the way I worked with Google is specifically X, their Moonshot Factory, is help them innovate in a specific problem through art. Basically, it's a different language. So how can you see your problem and the solution in a different lens? So it's, and same with therapy. It's the same actually principles, is I want you to get embodied. First, connect with what are your inner blocks, and then outer blocks, and you paint it out. So let me give you a specific example. I had someone who was experiencing severe depression. So we did this. We've had 2 canvases. I told him, let's not shame how you're feeling. Just put it out there. Put it on this canvas. And then I sensed which parts of his body should she paint with. And we ended up painting with her feet, because that's where most of her tension was, because each person is different. And then when I sensed a little bit of an opening, I was like, okay, now let's just go to the other canvas of what could be. We're not going to say this is what it's going to be your life. We're just what could be. And then she'll be like, okay, I sense a little pink. And she puts a little pink. And then she starts to get a bit more open to the concept of what does pink represent? And then she's connecting a bit more with what could be than what is. You get what I mean? It's shifting from that muscle of heaviness to a muscle of potential. And then what she ended up doing, and what I encourage most people, is when you're ready, we will let go of the painting that you don't want. And that sometimes is a process. But then the painting of what could be, let's hang it somewhere where you can see it every day. And when you look at it, take a moment and connect with that future that will soon become your present.
Remember how you channeled that inspiration, or remember how you channeled that.
Exactly.
Tell me, you have a very deep background in economics. And economists and art, usually they don't, I don't think economists in general appreciate art for the sake of art. And I'm sure art does not has very little respect for economy in general. And, essentially, if you really look at the essence of the study of art and the essence of the study of economy, they almost seem like they're enemies of one another. Economy could care less about people's, feelings. They care about people's behavior. But they really, as an economist, you wouldn't care about people's feelings, emotional
I
feelings.
have so much to say to that.
But tell me, how has your economic training affected the way you view your own art, the art of others, and what kind of influence does the study of economy have on your appreciation for art?
So I'm going to answer that question and answer a question that you didn't ask.
That's even better. Maybe I'll just walk out and you could be
No. But can I?
and
No,
the-
because you said something about like economics and art being kind of different, right? And almost
Well, I mean,
like enemies.
I think this is what a lot of people imagine.
Yeah. No,
Yes.
that's how people see
Yes,
it.
yes.
They're like polar opposites, and left side, right side of the brain. But the point I just want to name here is I've been doing a lot of advocacy on why art is much more than a beautiful object. It's actually a tool for, again, healing, and from the spectrum of healing to innovation. Let me give you one statistic. Because I've been working with like trying to build a case on why, for example, governments, the first thing they shouldn't cut is art. And there's so many, when you have, the top 12% of Nobel Prize winners are actually polymaths. What does that mean? A polymath is someone who is both an artist and an expert in their field in like science.
Yes.
And you look at their notes. So there's a beautiful study that showcases that they saw their problem and their solution better when they left their science, whatever lab, depending, are you talking about physics, biology, etc., and they went and played the piano. Because they entered a different world. So that means they come back to this world with a new perspective. So that's something I'm so passionate about. Because we're talking about, in every country, they want to build the best workforce, right? And they want to raise the economy. I'm like, well, build more polymaths. Create that
So you're
system.
telling me the effective flow when people, because I mean, essentially when you're working in the artistic field, right? You enter this, you're usually pursuing it as a passion unless it's forced on you. And when you're in the state of flow, you kind of give your mind the space to be more creative, to be more confident, to be more experimental, to be more okay with some of its, ideas that don't really fit with most people. And so you're telling me, as a person with a background in economy, when I enter the state of flow, I'm able to solve real world problems with tangible outcomes, using tangible strategies, tangible, metrics, because I'm also at peace with my non-tangible, non-metric abiding interest.
I think it's just, I would even, like, for putting flow aside, putting peace aside, it's like when you see different landscapes, you notice different things, right? It's not all the same. So if you saw this landscape, right, in La Lola, and then you went to a forest, you will notice more significantly different things. That's, I think, like, if we put it the simplest way. But to now answer your question, I originally thought art was a joke when I was,
A lot of people do, Aida.
and yes, and
A lot of people do. If art was a mainstream appreciation, I don't think there'd be any room for our podcast. And I think we really built this podcast because we really do want people to understand and see real life examples of the type of success that art does create. So I think that's a very fair, extremely fair statement.
Yeah, I thought it was not a smart career, like brain smart. And I honestly think if I wasn't forced to do it, I would probably never have done it, or done it when I was so old that I couldn't do anything with it, again, that's why I say this is the best thing that happened to me. And now I really am on a mission to help, especially in the Arab world, a lot of the narratives, societal narratives, to change, because we're losing a lot of the workforce their dreams, I see it in their eyes. They're like, they want to be an artist or a game maker, a filmmaker, whatever it is. And when we talk about art, it's the creative industries, and
Which is the basis for a lot, architecture, engineering. I mean, a lot of artistic perspectives are used in a lot of serious work. But I want to know, because you brought up Ulula, which is one of the most beautiful landscapes in the world. And you said, when you come to a place like Ulula, and so, first of all, have you been to Ulula? No. Not yet. But
not yet.
So if you
I'm planning, actually, because first time I came to Riyadh was in late January.
I have to take you to Ulula.
So this year I'm planning on going, actually.
For sure. I mean, it's not even a choice anymore.
Yeah.
It's a must.
No, I want to go.
Yeah, you're going to go. I want to know when people, so Ula's a big hot seat for artists all over the world. When artists come to a place like Ula, what kind of inspiration do you think those artists are looking for?
So I would say I can't obviously speak for other artists. I think I
From
can
your
say,
perspective,
yeah,
from somebody who has sold to, very big entities, who's worked at MIT, worked with Google, worked with, Qatar
Yeah.
Foundation. Tell me, what are artists, what are creatives looking for in a place like Ula?
So I personally always honestly talk to the land. I have deep respect for the land. I think the land carries memories and I just want to listen. That's what I want. I want the spaciousness to sit and listen and observe. And then, with art, from my art practice, I'm more of the vessel. And what the vessel means is I'm just listening. So I would like to sit there with spaciousness and time to translate what I sense and witness there. And I think that's really it. And it's not just the land, it's the people who've been there. It's the discrete plants that are growing here and there, the rocks, right? Like, I remember when I went to Petra and Wadi Ram, and then when I went to a forest, like all these different nature spaces, even urban spaces in New York, like they're all speaking, but who is listening? I think that's the question.
What are they telling you when you go to these
each
places?
space.
What kind of message is the space giving? I mean, Ada, you said it yourself. There's a lot of naysayers and a lot of suspicion around whether or not artists are being genuine with us when they're telling us about feelings, and they look at this abstract art, which you're an expert in, and you're giving therapy in. You're using as a medium of therapy. How do you convince people that there are like serious waves of communication between your setting and your feelings and the final, work of art that's being created by you? Convince
Yeah.
us.
So there's degrees of types of people, right? And there's a group of people that I don't work with who I need to fight to convince them because they're just not ready. And when you're a bit more ready and a bit more open, we'll have a conversation.
So is it about emotional maturity, Aida?
I wouldn't say that. I think it's about curiosity, and true leaders have good curiosity and they're open because they know that they're here to do it better than anything in the past. And if they're going to do it better, they need to listen and be open-minded. So, for example, I remember one session with Google. I was working with their engineers, their top engineers, and I was telling them that nothing is neutral. Like what you wear actually has an impact. It has an impact on how you think, even if it is 0.001%. But I'm working with the top innovators in the world, right? So for them, that 0.0001% matters because they want to be the best and they want to come up with solutions that no one has come up with. So they're open to trying. And I tell them, don't trust my judgment. I want you to try it. So before, don't take my word for it. Just go try it. Go try some art. Go paint with your hands and your eyes closed. Do you want to build a bit deeper connection with your family? Go paint a community canvas. Go have fun. And then come back to me. And sometimes you need the right facilitator because some people are just so rigid, and that's okay. It's just life happened, and they need someone to facilitate. But yeah, I don't know if that answers the question.
It does. I mean, I'm somewhat dumbfounded that there are people in this age with very sophisticated educational backgrounds who so easily discredit art as being some, wish-washy kind of sector, even though humans, one of the, main pieces of evidence we have of our mere existence from hundreds and thousands of years ago is art. So I don't know what could be possibly more impactful telling the story of humanity than something called art.
And, I have two thoughts to that. One is, what is our definition of success? And a lot of people would go to money, would go to position. And I don't know how many people would actually say like my happiness. And I think, when I think of, for example, people who collect art and for pure investment and they're beautiful pieces and just put them in storage, I get that to some extent, but then I think about, but what about the enjoyment of your piece? It's almost like, to me, in my head, it's almost like having a very delicious meal and then putting it in the freezer for one day to eat it.
We do that with our employees. We do that with our friends, with our family. We do that with human beings.
Yeah, exactly. So I think if we added how we feel to also our level of success, then art would have a greater value, because I think when people feel more connected to themselves, they're more productive human beings. Their crime rate will go down. There will be more supportive community, which means a better economy. Like there's studies that show how art is actually so beneficial, not just for health, but the economy and safety. So
clear metrics and indicators. Speaking like an economist. There are very clear metrics and indicators.
I'm a very practical woman.
That art is for real, and
so
it has a very tangible effect on societies and individuals.
Exactly. Can I tell you one thing actually that I think that's one of the biggest things.
We want you to tell us many things. That's why we brought you.
Tell me when to stop. But one thing that I really appreciate art for is I remember. So with art, when you showcase your art, you can tell from someone's eyes whether they like it or not. And it forced me, because I'm the type of person where I genuinely love people and I really want them to love me back, okay? So I like to be loved. But, the reality is that's not going to be the world. And I just remember the day when someone looked at my art and they thought it was...
not
I remember.
adequate.
Wait.
Mediocre.
I remember someone told me. And she's like, she looked at my art and she's like, maybe I'll put it in the bathroom.
Oh, that's especially cruel.
Yeah, that was actually really mean. But what the point is, art also builds character, and character meaning to be okay with who you are and not try to shape who you are for this person who actually is not going to remember your name. So,
well, I'm sure many people will remember your name, Aida, and I think what you just said was actually so profound. You're literally creating a piece of yourself and putting it up for people to see, and you're telling me that it's a very efficient way to build character. And really, those people who are the most confident are the only ones who'll be able to freely display their art, host exhibitions, be in a gallery, because they are literally putting themselves up for some sort of evaluation. And isn't that our greatest fear? To put ourselves up for evaluation and to be undervalued?
And it's, for me, it no longer is that the case. And I credit art because I'm comfortable with myself. But I'm always curious on how to improve. So people do give me unsolicited, opinions on how to, color combinations, do this. I always receive them because I'm curious. I want to see how can I think in a different way? And that's also, I credit art, because if I followed rules, it'd be boring. And that's why I don't listen to any rules around color combinations. I go with what feels right. And I paint, I paint 13 paintings at the same time. Why? Because I never want to paint with my mind. I want to paint with flow. So at some point, I'm going to judge this painting. So when I start judging it, I immediately move to the next painting. And then when I start judging it, I move to the next one. And then it's like an orchestra of flow, and rather than an orchestra of judgment, which is different. And also, I'm an artist who cares about impact. And there are not a lot of artists in that space. So I didn't have role models to follow. So now, thank God, there are more artists who are very vocal about nature conservation, well-being, and all that stuff, which is great. But don't wait for someone to be your role model. Just go do it if no one else is doing it, you know?
What inspiration do you get from the ancient world when it comes to art? So, like, for
Okay,
instance,
yeah.
very ancient place, 200,000 years of human
Yeah.
existence. Have you ever been inspired by any ancient aesthetics?
I mean, for me, Wadi Rum like spoke to my soul. Same as Utah and Arizona, specifically Sedona, and that rhymes. There's something for me about the colors. That's why I can't wait to go to Al-Ula, because it's the same kind of aesthetic that speaks to my soul, and I can't wait. And same with Petra, right? I just we work together. So that would, I'd say Sedona was the last one that deeply inspired me. That I spent maybe 2 weeks there, and then I went and I came back because I painted. I remember I just got canvas and I stood in between different canyons and just was
Well, you
in
know, as
heaven.
an Arab American lady with Jordanian roots, I don't blame you for being inspired by the geographies of both countries or for both
Yeah.
regions. And for that, I congratulate you and we wish for you the best of luck, Aida. And it already looks like, you know, you've accomplished so many things that many people would aspire to. And it was a pleasure to have you, seriously,
Thanks for
Aida, on the
having
show.
me.
And we hope to have you again in the future.
Inshallah.
And you're always welcome here at Al-Ula FM.
Thank you for having me. You're great. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Aida Murad, world acclaimed artist who was inspired by art after having to face the difficult challenge of being somewhat or semi-paralyzed for 4.5 years. She was trained as an economist at George Washington University in DC, and it has been an honor and a pleasure to have her here on Artifact, the podcast.
Thanks for tuning in to Artifact
Season 2.
on Al-Ula FM podcast.
The sound of Arabia.